Hi, in this video you'll learn about programming and how to get a computer to take some kind of input. But I thought before we start looking at the commands that we use in Python to do that, let's think about what is actual input and how does that relate to the real world. Well, you've probably all got a smartphone. That's what our project was about last half term. How does a computer represent, or a smartphone represent, lots of things like images, sound, numbers in binary, all that kind of stuff. But what we've got to think about is what is input. Well, input is basically just how we get something into the computer. So on my computer I'm using now, I've got a mouse and I can move the mouse around. And I've got a keyboard, and again I can type things, bash things onto the keyboard. This obviously has different input. This has a touch screen that when I swipe my finger across it responds to that input. If I load up the calculator app on my iPhone, I can push the buttons on here, and when I do certain things with the input, it works things out for me. So if I put in here 6 multiplied by 5, I can type that in and I can press the equals button, and in the background some instructions are executed to work out that 6 times 5 is 30. So you're going to be using input from a keyboard to get it to input some strings, so strings are pieces of text, and some numbers. I'm just going to work with integers at the moment, which you'll know from maths as being whole numbers. Obviously on the phone there are more than just a touch screen on here in terms of input devices. We've got a button on the side that allows you to turn it on and off and deal with things. We've got some buttons on this side that allow us to turn the volume up and down or turn it off completely. It's got a camera on here, so another input device that we might use in programs or in the real world we might use. As well as obviously in here there's a microphone that converts my voice and that waves and those frequencies into binary ones and zeros so the computer can understand. So today's lesson is to look at inputs, but it's useful to know what are inputs and how do they exist in the real world. And in things like an Xbox, you would probably have your gamepad to get it to press certain buttons in there and it would have some kind of response to that. So today's lesson, we're going to use some inputs from the keyboard. We'll take those inputs, we're going to do some maths with it, and we're going to work out the answers to some questions, which is kind of what happens in games. In the background, it's all working out where bullets would go, where the ball would go in a game. All that maths goes on is takes inputs from the user and then it calculates that to see what would happen in the actual game.